Um, my first job to me was it was under the table job, and it was for a lady named Doris Stevenson. She's still living. She's about 85 or 87 now, and she paid me when I was 12 years old for about 4 years. She paid me $10 an hour to come do yard work for about 3 days a week, and we planted organic vegetables and things like that. And that was my first fun job, and it was my first job here. Yeah, I was a computer game junkie. Um, so they had these any computer game that was driving or simulation games. I bought them. I saved, and they were back then. They were still $40 and $50, and I saved my money just for that. My mom said, "Okay, we're gonna set you up an account at Doco for savings." I was like, "Cool, that's fine." But I saved up about $300, and I spent about 250 in games. A lighter, a Bible, and I only need two. I'll pray through everything, and if I catch something by hand in the sea, I'll cook it with I don't think I can make a fire with sticks and stoves, but I know if I got a lighter, I can survive. Well, there's actually several factors. There is two particular quotes. My boss stated this to Emerge last year, and it was people at the top of every company have one thing in common. Simply put, they get things done. And then another quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, but I've heard this was quoted before, is "Do not go where the path may lead, but instead go where there is no path and make a trail." So those two of my biggest quotes that I say all the time, and another thing that drives me is the is that our youth, they're straying so far away now that we're losing them. And I'm not going to say I was one of those lost youth, but I've been through the judicial system. I've been through several things in my life that I tell people I've tore this city down enough. It's time to start rebuilding it. And I remember back when I was a little boy and we had General Motors. That's how we came from Ohio down here, because of General Motors. My grandparents worked in Ohio, and they moved down here to go work for General Motors to get away from the snow. But we had General Motors, Firestone, Bridgestone. We had so many companies and so many places to work that paid decently. So my biggest thing about the youth is that we just have to steer them back on the right way. We have to work with Doherty County Schools. I just spoke with them a couple of weeks ago, and trying to fill that gap and that void where parents aren't being parents and teachers have to fill that gap, and vice versa. So we can build our youth, and in return it'll build our economy for Albany.
Get away from it all.
I don't have much free time, as you said, but in the little time that I do have, it's still spent working. I mean, it's still figuring out, coming up with ideas and solutions for problems that we have. I'm an optimistic person, so I'm always thinking about the good rather than the bad. So when I see something bad occur, I'm like, well, let's see what other cities did to do this, or what other people think about this to fix this. So I really don't. And if I do read something, it's something on technology. I'm a Google News junkie, and I stay in touch with the Herald and the Washington Post. I read some articles on there, but that's about only three things that I just really read. It has I have a I don't want to say ADHD, but it is. If I sit and read anything too long, I get bored and I get sleepy, and I'll just go to sleep anywhere I'm at. So I don't do much. I had several role models. I mean, throughout the community, throughout church, throughout books that I admired. My biggest role model probably was my grandfather, and that's just for the simple fact he showed me what a man should do, how a man should treat a woman, how a man should act. He showed me the characteristics of being a man. But outside of him, I always wanted to be the first black president. I admire Martin Luther King. Any book with Martin Luther King as a child, I would read. No problem, no hesitation. I would read it. And when I was in school, but I always want me and one of my friends we always had. We was like, I'm going to be the first black president. He's like, no, I'm going to be the first black president. We used to go back and forth, and that was one of my things. I wanted to be the first black president. Although I can't be it now, but that's what I wanted to be. That was Martin Luther King and my grandfather were like the two biggest idols I had. Huh. I don't know. I probably would say James H. Gray. Just for the simple fact, him or Kennedy, but he had a vision for this city, and he was working on his vision. And then when he died, he was still working on his vision, but nobody else carried on. So I would like to see what his vision, to know what his vision really was, to revitalize Albany and continue to grow Albany.
Cool. In terms of goals, what kind of goals have you set for yourself, and where would you like to see yourself in 10 years?
Well, in 5 years, I'd like to be retired. I've had a vision of being retired by the time I was 30 for probably the last 20 years. I want to retire by 30, and I'm working hard at it. But I don't really have, my goals are, so they change daily because I'm stretched so many different places, and I want to do so many things. I can never say that I want to be in one particular place other than successful. So I can't say there's any particular goal that I have other than being successful. Huh. I don't know, probably Vegas just because I'm a gambler. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. When I say retire at 30, I want to retire from a lot of strenuous work, but I want to still continue to work. But I don't know where I would go. I mean, there's so many places that I want to see. There's so many sites that I want to see. And so many different things. I mean, I would love to go to Spain and France and Africa and just to see how the culture difference. So it's a bunch of places. There's no one particular place. No one. No. I have to go everywhere if I was rich and retired. I have to spend 6 months at least out of the year. Invest in gas. um, yeah, definitely invest in gas, but I probably would tell myself to listen to my parents more, listen to my grandparents more, and focus more on one particular thing than rather so many broad things.